Hello, hello, and welcome to Google Partners Academy on Air. My name is Julio Gonzalez, and I'm a strategic partner manager here at Google. Today, we're going to be speaking and presenting on Google's approach to leadership. As a reminder, our presentation will last for about 30 to 40 minutes today, but we're looking forward to your questions, so please stay tuned as we will have a Q&A later. Here with me today is Zhenya. Zhenya's been with Google for about 10 days. Zhenya, introduce yourself, please.
Yes, my name is Zhenya. I like to introduce myself as like Kenya with a J because the phone autocorrects it often to Kenya. But anyways, my name is Zhenya. I'm very excited to be here today. Thank you, Julio, for hosting.
Absolutely.
Like you mentioned, yes, it feels like it's been 10 days because the years just fly by. But initially, I started at Google in 2007. I joined the Google Enterprise organization, and then I moved to channel sales team, working with Julio and running a team of strategic partner managers focused on traditional media and franchise partners. And now I run a global team that is responsible for enabling partners just like yourselves around the world and helping them sell Google solutions and provide support to our customers. And the way we do it is we train, we provide data insights, we do product training, sales trainings, leadership coaching. So I'm very excited to be here today.
Thank you. Thank you for coming in.
Yes, so let's get started. One of the main things that I really love about Google is how very unique it is. And when we're going to be talking about leadership today, this unique, unconventional part will probably show up in a few things that we'll be discussing. Way back when, in 1998, when Sergey and Larry started the company, they wrote in the founder's letter that it is an unconventional company, and they do not intend for it to become one.
Yeah.
And now, many years later, 70,000 employees later, we're still an unconventional company, and I just love that. So when we talk about leadership today, you will see some of that unconventional things that I think might be good things for you to take back to your organizations. And what would make me very happy if after our presentation today, there is at least something, at least one or two things that you can take back, and it will impact your leadership style, and you will have the ripple effect through entire organization. So the three main things that I would like to cover in our discussion today are people. You cannot talk about leadership without talking about people. Talking about one of our mantras of 10X, you've heard that before, and I'll talk a little bit more about it today, and fail forward fast. So let's get started.
Let's do it.
Julio, you started a couple of years ago,
Yes.
and you've been very excited about joining Google. Can you tell me what is your most favorite thing about being here?
Oh, I have so many things. I think the food, if you could see, since you've met me 2 years ago,
food is amazing here.
Food has definitely packed some pounds. But I think the people, previous to my role here at Google, I worked at a couple of different startups that interacted with Google through partnerships, just like everyone else is watching here today. And one of the things that I was really amazed about was the amount of knowledge, support, inclusion that the folks from Google provided to us as a partner. So I always found it incredibly relevant, not only Google as a brand, but Google as the people, right? Not only the technology piece, but the people is really what I thought made this company very unique. So when I had the opportunity to apply and work with Google, I definitely took that as a big stepping stone in my career, especially in the people development part. Absolutely.
That's actually music to my ears that you talk about the fact that
we've rehearsed for hours.
No, we didn't. Well, what I was going to say is that when partners feel that it's a true partnership working with Google, and we all know that people don't buy from companies, they buy from people. But when we even asked Googlers, and we do this yearly, we have a Google Guys survey that goes out to all Googlers yearly, when we ask all sorts of different questions. But one of the questions is about what do you love the most, what do you enjoy about working at Google? And we have lots of perks. We have great food, like you mentioned. We have clinics on site with doctors. We have amazing workspaces. We have great technology. There's a lot of wonderful things, but people is what defines everything. Teams, people, managers, everybody who is working so hard to make the products that we have, to develop the culture that we have. So what I'd love to do today is to share with you some of the things about how we do this and how leadership plays an extremely important role in the way the teams are built, the way the managers manage, and the way we hire people. So when we talk about people, hiring is one of the most important things you will do to bring the right people here. What was your experience like when you got hired at Google?
Yeah, that was it was a bit lengthy, I thought. Obviously, there's an enormous amount of resources that Google provides. Excuse me. But I thought that it was well communicated through the entire process, right? I felt that in moments of no communication, as I was waiting for my resume to be submitted and so forth, I thought that the way the company communicated and the person that they gave me to connect with was always there for me and through that process, right? So it was about 3 months by the whole process,
yeah.
right? So there's a lot of anxiety. There's a lot of, am I submitting the right information? Do you need anything else from me? Why are we waiting a couple of days? So that process was incredibly healthy for me in that 3-month time tenure.
Yes, even when I was hired, which was almost 10 years ago, I remember that it took a whole day, many hours meeting with different people. It's exhausting, but also very exciting. And now when I'm on the other side and I'm the one who's interviewing people, I always try to make that a little bit nicer of an experience for people. We communicate, like you mentioned. The reason I want to spend a little bit more time on hiring and sharing the best practices is because when you bring people in your organization, they will define the culture and the direction that your team, your organization will take in the future. So I know we are extremely busy. We have a lot of things going on in our lives. At work, there are high requirements and service level agreements we have to meet. But bringing the right people, I think, is one of the most important things that you can do for your organization. And investing that time initially to avoid mistakes is crucial. So here's some best practices that I'd like to share with you. Structured interviews is one of there are lots of best practices. I picked 3 to talk about today. Structured interviews is one of the things that we use at Google to help us avoid biases. Yep. We all are biased. No matter how much we think we're not, we are. We have that.
We do.
Right? So, and one of the most common biases is a confirmation bias. I mean, it's psychological. Basically, you meet a person for the first time, and within seconds, you either like them or you don't. And normally, we're going to go with our gut in reaction to that, and then you get to know people and you might change your opinion. But in interviews, you do not want to follow your gut. You want to follow a well thought out process of identifying whether you have the skills that we need, whether you'd be a good fit culturally, whether you will be able to bring the values to the team. And structured interviews is one way to do that. When we talk about structured interviews, the main things we are basically thinking about is asking vetted, high-quality questions to the same candidates. So, for example, I'm currently actually interviewing for a couple of roles on my team, and I've been spending a lot of time on this. This is a
lengthy process, right?
Subject that is near and dear to my heart. And as I'm interviewing those people, I'm asking the same set of questions to every single person. And then that avoids that extra fluctuation. That way I know that when I review the feedback, and we take a lot of feedback, how they answer it, what they're saying. And then we process that, then I know that they all answered the same questions. Number 2 is using standardized rubrics. Basically, when I say this candidate is good, and Julio interviewed somebody, he says they're good, what is your good versus my good? What is poor? What is good and acceptable? What is superior and amazing? We all need to agree on that, define, and then when we do those structured interviews, receive the feedback, analyze, and apply to those specific structures.
And I think hire by committee is an incredible or important part of the hiring process. You'll be amazed once you get together with these folks that have interviewed the same candidate, the amount of information that you may have missed also in that process, right?
Yes, and that's going back to another bias is when you try to hire somebody who's just like you,
Yeah.
because you like people that are like you, they think like you, they speak like
It's
you.
comfortable.
Yeah, so you tend to fall into that, and you don't want to have a team of yous all around. That definitely would drive me crazy. So it's extremely important to hire by committee. You have a few people that can interview people and give you their feedback. And what we do at Google also is sometimes we even find people, what we call cross-functional interviewers, people from other departments. They may not even be extremely familiar with exactly what you do, but they're looking for certain things as an overall fit at Google. Because when you come and work in an organization, that at some point you can move between departments and grow your career. So structured interviews, extremely important. Hiring by committee. And then training interviewers and making sure that the question they're asking are the right questions, making sure that they make the other people feel good during the process, because you want to attract that talent to come work with you. Don't want to scare them away and give them crazy. So, and when you do that, each organization defines that main criteria, kind of your main attributes that you're looking for to bring somebody in. And at Google, we have 4 main general attributes: general cognitive ability, role-related knowledge, Googliness, and leadership. We are talking about leadership today, and leadership is something that we start looking at the very beginning of somebody's journey within Google. And it's not just people that are joining us for senior roles or managers that we're looking for leadership. We're looking at basic roles, leadership in every single level within the organization. General cognitive ability is basically, can you solve problems? I want to see how you're thinking through the problems, how you are coming up with solutions. We don't do brain teasers anymore, which is too bad because I love brain teasers. But we spend time on presenting problems, which may or may not have right answers, and we are looking how people are thinking through those problems. Role-related knowledge, self-explanatory, basically the skills you need to do your job.
Yep.
And leadership is, we actually looking for a very specific leadership in every role, and this is what we call emergent leadership. Do you know what emergent leadership is?
I'm going to guess here, so we didn't train on this or go over this, but for me, emergent is somebody that has a certain position, but when there is a project, a problem in front of them, they take a leadership role, even though their title doesn't call for it, right? And then they're willing to take leadership into a project, lead other folks around them, and still, after that project or problem is solved, take a step back and go back into his regular function, if you will.
That's very good.
A+?
Emergence.
Oh, okay, there you go.
Basically, you got it. He got it. So at every level, you need to be a leader. You're a leader not because somebody said you're manager and people should follow you. We often have people in individual contributor roles where other people want to follow them because they're a leader. So stepping in, running with it, taking the lead, helping people get through it, and then just as important, stepping back when things are done or giving other people opportunity to lead.
Yes, absolutely.
Extremely important.
Yeah, that's awesome. Googliness. This is the one that I think it's a big part of the culture, right? I remember the first week here at Google, I was in one of our small kitchens right by my office, and I asked another Googler what Googliness was. What was his perspective on Googliness? And he said, if you go to the kitchen and there are 2 cookies, make sure you only take 1, right? And I was like, okay, that makes a lot of sense. Then I asked myself, what do I do if there's only 1 left?
Yeah, and what do you do?
I think I would cut it. Would I break it in half or just eat it?
What would you do?
I'd probably leave it there. Last one, nobody probably wants the last one.
I doubt it. He probably won't leave it. He's just
I'll probably eat it.
I should add it to my interview questions. I'll be like, if there's 1 cookie left, what would you do with it?
I think it was a very insightful way of describing Googliness. I still remember to this day, 2 years later, right?
Yes. Googliness, I think, means different things for different people. But in general, at Google, we probably identify a few criteria that mean Googliness.
Yes.
And in your organization, you might have some specific part of your culture where you say, these are our core values and they're part of our traditions and culture within our organization. For Googliness, I would say a couple of things. One is bias to action. So what we mean by that is, if a decision needs to be made and we need to solve a problem, we need to work on something, instead of sitting and talking too much about it and analyzing too much, you are biased to action. And for me, that works really well. I'm a very action-oriented person. So when Larry sent an email a few years back talking to the entire organization about the fact that we spend too much time in meetings, and in order for us to be more effective, he basically gives us permission that if there is a meeting where there's no agenda, there's no decision going to be made, there's not going to be any advancement in solving a problem, you basically can skip it. So you want to focus on action. So bias to action is part of Googliness. Sharing or being part of a team, being collaborative, that's another part of Googliness. I would say that the third one probably dealing with ambiguity. I think in every role at Google, you have to deal with ambiguity. Nobody will put you in a place and say, okay, here's your box, here's your role, here's exactly how you. And dealing with that ambiguity and being comfortable with it, or as Larry also says, uncomfortably excited about things, that's part of being Googling. So what I would suggest here, as we're talking about leadership today and some of the things that you can take back to your organization, is when you are hiring, define those key attributes, have a committee to go and ask the right questions, watch out for biases, hire diverse teams. Diversity is an extremely important matter. And at Google, we do a lot of things educating people about diversity, making sure that we have those processes to help us avoid biases. So I would definitely highly recommend doing that in your organizations as well. Managers. Managers are people too. We're talking about people. Yes, managers. So there is a separate live stream that was delivered, I think, a few weeks ago on Project Oxygen.
Yes,
I highly recommend for you to view it. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on managers, but the reason I want to bring it up is because managers matter a lot. Here at Google, we ask ourselves, what if everybody could have an awesome manager? And manager helps with that leadership culture within Google, right? So a couple of things here. Good managers have specific attributes of what that means. On your screen right now, you see what it is specifically for Google based on our study that we've done. Definitely watch that live stream. Define what it means for your organization to have a good manager and measure it. At Google, we have these surveys, sort of up and down surveys, 360 view surveys, where we ask employees about how good the manager is, and then we ask their manager how good the manager is, and then we review it and it becomes part of their performance review. Extremely important, because your managers are leaders sort of by authority, and when you create a culture that you want to be innovative, that you want them to push people out of their comfort zone, this is extremely important to be a good coach, empowering, not micromanaging, really truly caring about the team. So this is also very dear subject to my heart. And then the team, right? We talked about new hires, you come in.
Yep.
Then we talked about, yes. And this actually brings a good point. When you hire a lot of extremely brilliant and amazing people, and they're strong individual contributors, how hard is it to be really good and collaborative as a team? You know, if everybody's a star, how do you make that work? So we've done a study to see what are the most important things of a successful, productive, effective teams at Google. And we analyzed over 200 teams, 200 interviews, assessed lots of information, and then we wanted to define effectiveness, what makes a team amazing. And what was interesting is the things that we found were slightly different what some of the external research suggests. So basically the 5 things that we have is psychological safety, dependability, structure and clarity, meaning, and impact. So the how sometimes matters a little bit more than who on the team.
Yes. Psychological safety, can you break that one a little bit? That one, I'm not too sure if I understand.
Yeah.
What exactly psychological safety
do you
means.
feel psychologically safe right now?
Right now it's a little intense, but no, I'm trying to work through it. But yeah. What exactly does that mean? In making these teams effective, like, how does that psyche play into it, and where's the safety role play?
Yeah. So psychological safety basically being number one on our list is extremely important. When you create a team, you want to make sure that the team trusts each other and they feel safe taking risks. Because if they're not, there's not going to be innovation in this team. They're going to be watching out for, for your back and being uncomfortable, challenging status quo, or going above and beyond, making that leap, doing 10x. So one of the things that we do on our teams is when the new managers start and they build the teams, or the teams assemble, or things change, we assess them, how people feel against these different criteria. And psychological safety specifically is the trust building on the team. There are different exercises that we're doing that help create an environment where a conflict is part of the process. Conflict is not something that you shy away from. In conflict, sometimes you come up with amazing things. And if you feel safe having that conflict, that it's not personal, it's about an issue, this is when it really matters.
And then that happened to me in one of our main meetings that we had about 3 months into my role, where all the managers got together. There's always this part of safety. And coming from startups, we don't have a lot of that sometimes from other companies. And all of a sudden, managers started talking about the safety piece and started raising questions on projects over the last quarter, over the last year, that didn't go well and how they didn't go well. And I felt not uncomfortable, but I felt very relaxed. I'm like, wow, this is an incredible team. It's transparent. But I thought that was that team that's been put together for so long. I've been part of other teams in conversations, and they've also had this type of safety conversation. So psychological safety, that makes a whole lot of sense. Thank you for that.
Yes, and dependability, structure, and clarity, I mean, these are all self-explanatory, meaning I'll probably spend a couple of just seconds on that. You want to feel that your work has meaning. It's extremely important that the value that you bring to the table. So as managers, one of the things that we want to make sure that we do for our teams, showing the things that they do, what meaning does that have for organization, for our users, for our partners? So definitely spend quite a bit of time on that, because that empowers people. And of course, impact, being action-oriented and focused on results. Okay, I've done all these things, so what? That's the question I often ask. When my team is telling me about, we've done all these trainings, we've delivered all these webinars, we've done all this coaching sessions. So what? What happened? How did that move the needle and improve something, improve the knowledge, grew revenue, whatever it is, we're looking at the impact.
Absolutely.
So we've talked about people. People are extremely important. We've talked about hiring. We've talked about managers. And then I want to talk about this mantra that we have at Google, going 10x. You've heard that. You've been here long enough.
Yes.
Give me an example of your 10x's recently.
That was not part of our conversation, so you're putting me on the spot. But I think sometimes, or when I joined, my thought was, I'm going to make an impact by doing something, right? Whatever that may be, whether it's, how do we improve our service to our partners? How do we get them the information on a timely fashion? Things like that. And every time I went into one of these meetings with an idea, the idea somehow got 10x without me knowing the 10x concept, if you will. And that 10x meant, great, you've improved and helped your partners. How do we help hundreds of partners? Right. And then that really takes you back, because the ideas I had were not as aggressive or as scalable as I once thought. So that to me is what 10x means. Like, how can you make a broader impact? Can the idea you currently have today be at a larger scale or impact in whatever you're trying to work on?
Yeah, and just to clarify, we're not talking about 10x as, incremental things hey, let's grow things by 10%, 20%. No, we're thinking about huge leaps, innovation, amazing ideas. One Larry Page stated recently that if you're not doing some crazy things, then you're probably not doing the right things. So I love that.
Yes,
I love
absolutely.
doing crazy things.
Absolutely.
But I have a story to tell you about this. Basically, 10x is our moonshots, right? And I remember I was at Google a few years back, and I used to live in San Francisco, and we have shuttles that drive us back and forth. And I was at the shuttle stop here in Mountain View, going to San Francisco, and then I see this guy who was riding on rollerblades to the bus, and I was like, wow, that's cool. We started talking. He recently joined Google at a time, and I was like, so what do you do at Google? And he goes, well, I'm going to collect all these ideas, and I'm going to make some amazing things. And I'm like, well, what's your job responsibility? What's the team? Well, anyways, it was Astor Teller, who is running our Google X. And at a time, when we were chatting about it, he was like, yeah, I'm collecting all these ideas. I'm thinking about things. And I was like, well, I have ideas. I can come. So we scheduled lunch. I showed up with my ideas, and I was like, here, Astro, we can do this and that. He was very sweet. He listened. He's like, these are great ideas, Zhenya. But what I'm thinking about is kind of ideas like, what if we could cure cancer?
Oh,
and
wow.
I was like, wow, that's amazing. Because we often think from the certain point and we're jumping forward, but instead think without that, starting point, right?
Yeah.
Just think big. Think, what if we could do this? What if anything and everything was possible? What would it be like? And embed it into your culture, into your everyday interactions with your teams, with your partners. And I used to, being an SPM, I used to ask my partners, you're partnering with Google. If anything was possible, what would it be?
Yeah.
What would you like to do? So also making everybody think that 10x. So anyways, the moonshots success stories are found in the intersection of huge problem, radical solution, and breakthrough technology. We have a lot of examples like that. But in everyday life, even in my org where we do trainings, we also think about moonshots. And when I build my business plan for 2017 and so forth, I put together things that I want to accomplish as a team. And then there's a separate magic slide where I say, okay, if sky is the limit and anything is possible, and I want to think 10x for my organization, what would it look like? What would it be? And I encourage my team to do that. So that's one of those mantras that we have at Google in every level, in every interaction, that I definitely think helps us build that culture of innovation. And that's something that you can take back to your organization.
And it provides excitement to the teams to think that way, right?
Yeah.
Sometimes now we think 10x, but we may just do 1x sometimes, right? And sometimes we high five, and I'm like, I thought we could do a little bit more. But that really motivates you to come in and do your work, right? And it doesn't really become work, if you will.
And push people, get them out of their comfort zone, get them uncomfortably excited.
Uncomfortably excited, that is correct.
Right. And another thing I wanted to share with you today, it was really hard for me to, when I was preparing for this live stream, it was very hard for me to kind of narrow down a few things. Talking about leadership, you can talk about so many different things. So I narrowed down to this few, but I wanted to include the fail forward fast mantra. And I have a picture of penguins. You know why penguins?
Yes. The Courageous Penguin Award.
Yes.
We have an award in our team that rewards and awards somebody or a team that took a leap of faith into a problem, provided a solution, and whether that solution worked or not, there's an award, right? Because somebody took a leap of faith. I think it really is called the Courageous Penguin because penguins, when they go in hurdles and they get to the edge of the ice before they go into the water, one of them jumps in the water to see if there's anybody there that could start chopping up the bits there of penguins. And if that penguin floats, great.
Yeah, everybody can go.
He's alive. We could all jump in. So the Courageous Penguin Award, which we just gave away in our team, provides that safety net, right? So if you're thinking 10x, we're also rewarding and acknowledging failures, if you will, or hey, just the fact that somebody went out there and jumped into the water to see if there were going to be chump for a whale or something like that. It's super important. All right, we'll leave it at that. But the courageous penguin is definitely a fail forward fast, and I'm sure you have more info on that. And how can we get there, and how do we fail forward fast?
Yeah, it's a little funny when you're like, oh, it's about failing. It's not about failing per se. It's about taking risks and not being afraid. Because if you take that risk and you fail, what's the worst thing? I mean, we tried. At least we tried, right? We learned something, and then the next thing will be better. So fail forward fast is extremely important too, is because you don't want to take a project and just keep running with it. Because, when you start working on something, it's like, take your baby. You don't want to drop it. You want to keep putting resources into it. You want to keep working on it. Maybe I'll do this and we'll make it work. Realize that, not working, realize what it meant, take your learnings, cut it down fast, and move on to the thing that makes sense. So out of hundreds of projects you might be working on, if one or two or three are successful and they're amazing, because you're taking risks and you're encouraging that behavior, risk-taking, smart risk-taking behavior, then you're creating a culture of innovation, a culture of leadership that anybody can do that. And to your point, you have a safety net of your management recognizing that you are thinking big, you're thinking 10x, you're taking risks, you're doing it one for the team, even if it failed. So I definitely recommend some sort of encouragement in your organizations for people that do take those risks. First of all, make the team feel safe, right? Psychological safety, that we're all good. It's not personal, right? And then encourage them to leap forward and make those amazing decisions that will push your organization forward.
Awesome. So I think you have one more slide maybe, or
yes.
Or not?
So what I wanted to do is I wanted to share with you a website. If you haven't seen that before, if you haven't used it, there's a lot of really amazing insights and information there. On our best practices. I highly recommend reviewing it, taking something that makes sense for you, something that doesn't. It's currently on your screen, and I think we can jump into the questions.
Yeah, absolutely. So hopefully there's a couple learnings there. I think the one learning I've taken from this leadership portion, I think, is to fail fast. A lot of companies think forward. They're trying to create impact. People are trying to get excited, but applying a safety net, if you will, like you mentioned, to the team on, hey, if we're going to go this big, don't worry about failing. We will find learnings from that, and how do we share those through the team? I think it's always what I've always taken from my role here at Google. I think we do have a couple of questions, so let me take a look at those really quick.
All right, that's good.
Which one? Right there. You like that one? So with many smart people at Google, is it hard to motivate them? There's probably only so much cool stuff going on, and the majority of the work is usually mundane, I'm assuming. Assuming.
Good question.
Yeah, it is a good question.
So is it hard to motivate them? I will say that as a manager, one of the most important things that you can do is get to know your people, right? So we do this thing, and my team is we create sort of manuals for each other, and we say, okay, this is who I am, this is how I work. Like if you got a computer, if you got a washing machine, you would have some sort of manual that comes with it and says, don't press this button or press this button twice. With people being complex creatures as we are, there's no manual. Nobody tells you, how I need to talk to you, how I need to motivate you, what I need to do with you. So it's a job of a leader and manager to get to know what is it that motivates people. And by having a diverse team, there are diverse things that motivates people. So I have people on the team that are motivated by recognition, public recognition. And there are some people that don't like public recognition. They just want this one-on-one understanding of that, like, really appreciate what they're doing. There's monetary recognition, always that. At Google, we also use peer bonuses, which is a way for peers to recognize the impact that you've done. And if somebody did something extraordinary, I, as a peer, can submit a peer bonus, and they'll receive a little, thank you certificate and some money. So monetary recognition, public recognition, there are things that motivate people like career growth, like giving them opportunities that they wouldn't have otherwise. I've had situations on my team where I had somebody on a rather low level and they did not have access to working on certain projects, more exciting projects that would require, more senior approach. And by giving them that opportunity, pairing them with people, giving an opportunity to grow and learn, that motivated them, that got them excited. So yes, a lot of things going on. Some things are mundane, it's work. It's not like we're all just, going crazy and having fun all the time. There are a lot of responsibilities, but there are things that you as a manager and as a leader can pinpoint for specific people on their motivation.
Yes.
Would
Yes.
you add
No,
something to that?
I agree with you. And I think it kind of goes right into the next question here, where how would you define the difference between a manager and a leader, right? So motivating to me, and I would like to hear your thoughts on this, the manager is a big part of it, right? And in his leadership role. And the reason why I say it's a big part zone, and you mean very true, the leader or manager in this case has to have that leadership mentality, and not all things work for the entire team. And how do you motivate people kind of correlates to what you just mentioned, that you got to have a certain degree of ability to interact in different ways and communicate. What is good for you is may not good for me. And I think that's something that motivates me on how my leadership team communicates, and makes it very personal at times, where I feel like I'm not only creating impact, but I'm being recognized for it.
Yeah. And when we talk about manager versus leader, for me, I would say a manager is a job. You have a certain responsibilities. You have to hire and train people. You have to create vision, strategy for the team. You have to do all these things. But being a leader is a little bit more of a choice, maybe, because you can be a leader without being a manager. You can be a manager without technically being a leader. For me, leader means is people want to follow you, whether you are their manager or whether they're coworker. And the reason they normally want to follow you is because of a couple of things. You have amazing vision and you know how to get there, and people want to line up behind you, is because you truly care about people and they feel it and they want to follow you because, there's certain amazing qualities that you have. So combining a manager and a leader is the perfect case scenario, but at the same time, a leader is something that does not have necessarily a job description like a manager does.
Yeah, and I think one more part that I've seen at working here is that the leaders or managers that I've had feel part of the team, and they don't feel like a leader. They don't feel like they're outside of our box, if you will. So they do work with us that I think at times they shouldn't be doing. Right. And I know that sounds like, okay, maybe they're not being as productive, but I'm actually feeling that they're helping the team and stepping up when, somebody is out traveling and there comes an email and we need to solve a problem. The leader doesn't usually wait for somebody. They usually go, hey, what are we doing about it? Can I help? Do you guys have it covered? And I feel that safety net is part of that communication too.
And it's actually one of the things we also measure too, is whether your manager has technical ability or sales knowledge or whatever it is that your role is, like accounting, if you're in accounting, for you to be managed by that person. And if somebody's out, for them to jump in, being right there next to you. Another thing that I really love about Google is that we're not hierarchical. So we're trying to avoid too many layers and people being above and all that. We're trying to work as a team. And so that's to your point of managers jumping in and working with everybody.
Absolutely. There's tons of questions coming in. I'm trying to sort them out here.
Okay.
This is a good question, which is, so we've talked about people, we've talked about managers, we talked about the fail fast. How do you tie in fail fast with performance review, right? Because we're all measured on something. I think this is a great question. We're all measured on something on a quarterly basis, yearly basis, on our performance. How do you tie those two together?
That's a good point. Yeah. So one of the things that we look at for performance reviews is what you do, right? The impact of your work, how you do it, how you make everybody feel around you when you're doing it. And in that criteria, if you're working on a project that failed and that was the only thing you've done, but you're showing the, the potential, or you're showing that it's a risk you've taken for the team and you've gotten lots of learnings from it. There are lots of other things you were doing probably besides that project. So it's not like you're going to be dinged for it in your performance review that you failed because you were just so amazing. Because normally if you're working on this and you're taking that risk, you got buy-in from everybody and people are supporting you. It's not like you're doing something on your own, nobody knows or cares. So people clearly see value in it, whether it's going to fail or not. But at the same time, me as a manager, if I see somebody who's just leaping without thinking and keep failing and failing, I mean, they're going to get eaten by a shark at some point. So that tells me that maybe there's a work for me to do with them and coach them and help them identify things that needs to be done, right? We always have our core responsibilities of your core work, what you need to do. And then there's that extra ability for you to do extra projects, extra things to go beyond.
Yeah, I want to add one more piece. Is just remembered documenting the fail fast, and then going to the person that had that fail fast opportunity. When you have an idea and somebody goes, "No, you should go and talk to so and so," they already thought about it. They failed, but when you go to them and go, "Hey, I had this question or I had this idea," and somebody referred me to you. You could see the passion that they like, well, I failed at this, but let me show you what I've done. And they're very proud of that work, even though it didn't go anywhere. So yes, I think we all have, right? Hopefully. So yes, absolutely. Let's take one more question. Let's see how they're lining up here. You want to do that one?
Go ahead.
How do you handle an employee that is too eager?
Oh, yes. I think it's a better problem to have than people that really don't care and they don't want to do anything.
100%.
So it's like all that excitement and eagerness to do things. You as a leader and manager, you need to funnel it in the right direction and coach people to get there, to get the results. So I'll take eager people any day than people that like kind of show up to work and be like, oh, I clocked in, which I don't see that here. But again, I said coaching, direction, working with them and making sure that it's going in the right way, and working with them through it would be one of the things that I would do.
Yeah, I think sometimes we see eager and we don't see that they have another career within your organization. Sometimes when we hire somebody, they're very eager to do something and they're doing a good job, but maybe that eagerness is showing a passion for something else within your organization. So be able to address that and highlight it and start finding that how that person navigates and grows within the company. I think that eagerness can match their passion and their role within the company. So
as a manager and leader, you should always look for the interests or skills that people have and help them find opportunities sometimes within even other teams.
Absolutely. All right, let's.
I like this one because
let's take one more. Absolutely.
There's tips of cultivating. So any tips for cultivating this with virtual teams? This one also is very near and dear to my heart because my team is virtual. So I have a global team. I have people located in Europe, Asia Pacific, all over US. I only have one person in Mountain View who's on my team. Everybody else is remote. It's extremely challenging because people are in the offices and they're the only one who's doing the job that they're doing. So for me, what that means is that a lot of one-on-ones, schedule one-on-ones. It means that I need to spend some time in person with people. Either I'll bring them in or I'll travel to see them. At least twice a year, I want to get them all together as a team in one room for couple of days. We just had an offsite getting all together where we get excited when we get to know each other, when we do social things together, because it's challenging to be, on your own. And over VC, as great as technology is, sometimes the human connection of being in the same room is extremely important. So clear communication, cadence of meetings, making sure that you bring the teams together would be my recommendation for that.
Yeah, that's a difficult one, right? Because the camera doesn't translate emotions. Somebody may say a joke Somebody may say a joke, or not a joke, just a funny comment, and it may not, communication times breaks up, or
Yeah, don't do it over email.
yeah, over email. But I do think you bring up a good point, which is, to me, I work with several folks over VC, having the time for them, not delaying meetings or not showing up and so forth, really starts building up anxiety on the other line, if you will, in that management. So absolutely. All right, let's take one more, and then I think we're getting close here.
And so leadership is not only in work environment, it also exists in our social life. What does Google do to encourage their employees to step up their leadership and social life? Love this one, actually. So one of the things that we do is we provide encouragement and we provide flexibility for people to do that. Another thing is Google itself as an organization does a lot to impact the society and communities around the world in all the locations where we are, where we have offices. One of the things we do is we have Google Serve, which is our yearly tradition of Google just basically shutting down for a few days for certain departments, and people are going and serving their communities, volunteering, doing projects, and supporting those communities, taking the knowledge and skills that we have here and we've developed and taking it to the communities around, having that ripple effect. Another thing we do is Google pays for people. So for example, if I go and volunteer somewhere, that organization will get paid for the hours that I've worked there, sort of as a donation from Google, which is amazing. For example, my husband is a firefighter as a volunteer. He works at another company, but the company does similar thing to Google. Because he goes and volunteers, the firefighter organization will receive also a check from his org, and this is what we do at Google. So that's highly encouraged. Different programs that exist in place, like Google Serve, like matching donation, matching volunteering, encourages people to take their skills and take them into communities.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, you feel good with all the questions and time? I think we're almost to the hour.
I don't know.
All right, so thank you very much. And as always, we encourage to keep the discussion on the Google Partners community. See you online.
Thank you.
Thank you.